So this is the spreadsheet that you'll open when you click on the spreadsheet in Microsoft Teams, and it will open in Excel online. So this is the online version of Microsoft Excel. It's much better to do this task in the desktop version of the Excel app. It can be done in the online version, but it's easier to do it on the desktop. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll go up to the menu bar up here, and you'll notice there's this option here that says Open in Desktop app. I click on the button, and what will happen is it will launch Microsoft Excel, and it will open up that spreadsheet. Now, the thing I need to remember is that it will be automatically saving. We can see this option here at the top left. It says auto save is on. That means every time I make a change, this spreadsheet will automatically be saved to the copy in OneDrive that is attached to the Microsoft Teams task. So I don't need to save anything. Anyway, you've got two tables. You've got this one on the left here. You've got this one in the center. Oops, this one in the center right here. And then we have a bunch of instructions. The first rule of any task is read the instructions and then do what they say. Now it says use the graph at the bottom of this page for this task. Scroll down to see this, and you notice we've got a graph down here. It then says complete table 1, filling in the values of amplitude of the signal for each of the times shown in table 1. Over here we've got various times, and you notice the values are missing, so we need to fill those in. So you're simply going to read down on the graph down here. The first one I want is time of 0. And if I look at the time is along the bottom, time is 0. The signal is somewhere between 30 and 40. I'm going to call it 35. And I just type in 35 and then press enter. Then I want the signal at time 10. Over here, the signal seems to be about 40. So I'm going to type that in and so on. Now, I'm just going to make up a bunch of figures here. These are not the real ones. Do not copy what I'm doing. I'm doing this purely simply to save a little bit of time, so you don't have to watch me read a graph and type some numbers in. So anyway, there's some numbers, and that allows me to do instruction number 2 over here, which is to create a scatter graph of amplitude against time. If you look at the graph, it says at the side here, amplitude in volts, and along the bottom it says time in seconds, and I want amplitude against time. So basically I'm going to use the table I've made to plot a version of this graph. I'm going to click on time there in cell A4, and then I'm going to go down to this last value here. I've got a 78, you won't have a 78. I'm going to press the shift button on my keyboard, and then I'm going to click on that there, and that will select all of those values. Now I go up to the insert menu, and if you look in the middle here, we've got charts, and I want a scatter graph. Now I happen to know that this little icon here is going to give me various choices, but if I click on recommended charts, I get all these different types of charts. I'm going to go to all charts, and then I'm going to go down the side here and find scatter, XY scatter. And then if I put my mouse over these, you'll notice they've all got names. And what I want is scatter with straight lines, which is this icon here. So I click on that. That shows me what my chart's going to look like. And then I click OK, and it will put it into my spreadsheet. There it is. Now, it then says add a title to your chart and label the axis. Now, there's already a title on this one here. There it is. It says value. If the title was missing and I wanted to add it, I would simply go up to click on the chart first of all, and then I go up to the chart design option at the top here, and you'll notice on the left here it says add chart element. If I click on the arrow, I can then say I want the axis titles, chart labels, and all sorts of other stuff in here. These are all the choices that will allow me to change the way this graph looks if I want to. But anyway, my charts up here, rather than just say value, I want to say this is amplitude against time. And what I'm using for that name here is I'm plotting, it says on the instructions, create a scatter graph of amplitude against time. So that's the words I've used. Now, I need to label the axis. I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to fix my spelling error here. First of all, anyway, axes. I'm going to go up to click on the chart design, add chart element. I want axis titles. I want primary horizontal. And if you'll notice now, I've got it says down here axis title. And if I look at the original graph, it tells me that's time in seconds. So this is going to become time. And I'm just going to put /s, which means in seconds. And then equally at the side over here, I want a vertical axis. So click on the chart design menu comes back, click on that, and then I'm going to go, I want the primary vertical axis, which is that one there. And if I look at the original, it tells me that that is amplitude, which is in volts. So I'll put /V for volts. Right, now having done that, I need to insert a text box and explain how accurately the graph represents the original sound. So to do this, I go to insert, and you notice over here on the right hand side, I've got an option that allows me to insert a text box. So if I click on it and choose text box, my cursor will now change to this funny thing, and I can now drag a text box in, and then I get some space to write. Now, important thing here, what we're doing is we are explaining how accurately the graph I've drawn represents the original. So in other words, how close is this thing over here with the spelling error in the title, which I'd expect you to fix it. Well, we'll do that in a moment. But how accurately does that graph represent this thing over here? So in other words, how close is it? So I'm going to say in the first graph, the signal is, and then I'm going to say how close it represents the original. It then says, for question 5, identify the major problems and explain how the accuracy of the representation can be improved. So I need to say why I think this isn't as good a representation as it could be, and what I would need to do to improve the quality of the graph. So that's what I'm going to write in this text box down here. Now, you'll then have option these sections here to do. So task number 6, complete table 2 using the values from the audio signal. So again, we're going to fill in this column here. Now the eagle-eyed amongst you and the quick thinking will think, oh, hold on a minute, he's asking me to fill this in, and I've just filled in a table with 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. So you can just copy these numbers that you put in here and put them in the relevant rows in this table here, and then just fill in the gaps. You're then going to create a second scatter graph, and again, what you're going to need to do is select the data. So you go from click on time and select all this data. You're then going to go up to the insert menu. You want your scatter graph, which you can get to as a shortcut to it right here. So if I click on the arrow, it's this choice here, scatter with straight lines. Click on that. It will then put a graph in. And then having done that, you need to add titles, which again, if you remember, if you click on the chart, go to chart design, you can get your chart title in here, your axis titles here, make sure you label them correctly and put proper units on them, and so on. Now, you'll notice my spreadsheet's getting a little bit busy right now. There's quite a lot going on in it. So again, once you've made your second graph, you need to identify, talk about how accurately it represents the original sound. You can say it, and you can compare it to maybe the first effort. Talk about the major problems and explain how you can improve it further. And then what have you learned? For question 10, I want to know what you've learned from doing this activity. Now, the last thing you want to do, as it says here, is move your graph onto a separate sheet, or move your graphs onto a separate sheet. So we'll just do that before we finish off. So I'm just going to get rid of this side pane here by clicking on the cross. Now, I've got 2 graphs. I've got this second one here that doesn't have any data on it. The reason it doesn't have any data is because when I selected, you'll notice there were no numbers in here. And if I actually put these in here, you'll see a really good feature of Excel, which is that it will automatically plot the graph if I add the data, even if there was none there originally. And you'll see I'm getting this kind of really good graph here. Now, if I want to move a graph onto another page in the spreadsheet, it's very easy to do. You click on the chart, go to chart design again. That's where the answer is always is if you're working with charts. And if I look at the options I've got available over here on the right hand side, it says move chart location. So I'm going to click on that. Excuse me, and it says choose where I want the chart to be placed. Do I want it on a new sheet, or do I want an object in this sheet data? And if you look down here, it says data, so that's saying leave it where it is. I'm going to choose new sheet, and I want to call this chart 1. Click OK, and you'll notice that the chart disappears. And now we have data, chart 1, and this is that data. If I go back to my original sheet and click on the chart, again, chart design, relocate it, and it's going to be chart 2 of and it will shift it over eventually. Try that again. And there we go, chart 2. If I want to rename these, very easy to do it. I right click on it and I simply choose rename. And this is, I'm going to call this table 1 chart. And I'll call this second one table 2 chart. It will automatically name your charts, chart 1, chart 2, chart 3, and so on. It will not, it doesn't know which one's which. So if you want to reorder these as I've just done, I just simply clicked on the tab and dragged it across. There we go. That's how you're going to do that chart there. Now you can leave your little text box here with your explanations. So we want how accurately does, or how close is your graph to the original. This way you're going to explain that. You're going to put your conclusions in here, and if you want to, what you can do is you can maybe put stuff in bold. You could underline stuff and so on. Obviously, it'd be great if you could spell check it and not include the typing errors that I've included, but make sure you do proofread it before you submit it. Once you've finished the activity, all you need to do, as I say, is simply you can click on this button here that says save. That will save it, and then you can simply close Excel, go back into Microsoft Teams, and then submit it to the assignment. Job done.